if your target audience is a very select set of people, and that's the luxury example I was giving, a lot of those guys don't want to be known at the top level. That's the conversation that's going on right now, right, in the luxury world. A lot of them don't want the stuff that everybody else has got. They don't want everyone to know what they have. They want only the people in their circle to know that stuff. It's like a badge.
The thinking, doing, and communicating are three dimensions that are equally important.
Yes, yes.
We used to call it the TDC of life. So thinking is the conceptualization of it, doing is execution, and C is communicating and collaborating.
Correct.
And that conserved resources, if it transferred as a value to the customer, I think the
That
product
makes more
finds
sense.
its.
Multiple brands in this city, Surf. Look at the amount of money Surf spends on advertising and compare it with Ghadi on that matter. And I've been silently able to flood the rural market, flood the small market, and I've become a huge brand in the market.
I'll rather not have a Sula wine if there is nothing else on the offer. Okay, I'll not. But today that has changed significantly, and that's not because others have said. It's just because I have, it's tasting better.
People need to understand the difference between swell and growth. Swelling is what you artificially create with PE money. You buy customers. Swelling will not last.
If a company is doing too much advertising, if you're seeing everywhere the same advertisement, you will probably start disliking them. It has to come from a third party. If an influencer is talking about a product, that has more validity than a company talking the same thing again and again.
Okay, so let me start very generic, and I'm sure that this word minimalism looks very fancy to many of us. So I just want to get your feel on this term called minimalism, if we can.
Yeah, so I think looking at how does a company or a product get its name out? How does it get its identity into the world outside? Clearly, there are lots of things that we have learned along the way, the ATLs, the BTLs, and all of that. But the real question is, how can you get your name out with absolutely no play in the market, right? And in my mind, minimalism to me is nothing but product excellence, which results in word of mouth, the voice of customer that generates a virality to it. I mean, Swiggy for a long time, when they started, was not something that came out guns blazing. They became famous because there was a need, there was a product, and the product service was amazing, and then it came together the way it is. Of course, later on, you do everything that everybody else does because you get funded and you have the means to do it. But staying below the radar is the play, right, we are talking about. Now the question is, who is your target audience? I mean, if you are a direct-to-consumer play, then word of mouth becomes the most important thing. If you are a direct-to-business or direct-to-government kind of a play, then that play is very different. Then what do you do with regard to that? So as we go through it, we'll discuss the two different target segments, the individual and the institutional target segments and what it means. But to me, minimalism is nothing but how do you get your product out with absolutely no money spent on it.
Okay, the least amount of resources you want to make.
That's the way I would look at that. Yeah.
So minimalism, the way I see since I have the opportunity of working with a startup, it's about reducing the quantity and increasing the quality. So how much you reduce in terms of the volume of the activity, but you focus more on the quality, more on the ROI concept, which is basically how much it is making sense. And particularly from a marketing, there are different aspects we see, and obviously with the technology changing, with your ability to have the different channels, it has become really possible where you can do exactly what you want to do and cut down what is not needed. So for me, minimalism is basically focusing more on the ROI through the quality concept of what is that you want to achieve, whether it could be in your personal life what you want, rather than the number of things that you want, more than the aspects.
So more out of less, that's what you're talking about is minimalism.
More out of less and more exactly what you need rather than just having and deciding what you need.
Sure. Any other thought?
So I kind of lean towards what Hari said because I'm living through that in our startup in US now. We started as a nobody 2 years back. All we had is our platform and one customer and probably few social workers on the platform. Zero marketing money. We rebuilt the whole platform. We increased our social service network. And we are a bootstrap company. We didn't go through the rounds of funding, so we don't have the extra dollars to spend.
Sure.
Vis-a-vis, the closest competitor had $120 million fund. And they had a head start 2 years before. And the segment is called SDOH, and they are the synonym of the segment. Now, it's role reversal because the platform didn't deliver. The slides were sexy. All healthcare events, they were present. We did not sponsor anything. We let our care coordinators, social workers speak, the platform speak. Practically, we started hitting the event circle now. When we go there, people are queuing up to meet us. So now we're taking the leap. It is making your dollars worth them at the right time, right sizing at the right time, but platform product excellence should be the front runner of that marketing approach. That's how we see it.
Okay.
The one thing that comes to my mind beyond all of the things that they've said is, and I'm forgetting the term for it, right? But in the luxury segment, for example, right now, there's the whole conspicuous consumption and brands that everybody knows, written in big letters everywhere. But there's a movement away from that, right? Is the brands that are clearly quality, high end, that not many people know about. And how do you create that aura around yourself? Because obviously you can't just blast the airwaves with your ads, otherwise you're exactly the opposite of that piece. And some brands have done a phenomenal job of that. So some form of minimalism has to be that part of creating a brand without bombarding people with messaging.
The mystique, the mystery that is
Okay.
there.
So,
around it,
but
yeah.
but there's an inherent fear. Say for example, and I'm just quoting. So yesterday I was teaching in National Police Academy. So and I teach a very unique statement there, which is called branding and police image. So now that's a common thing. In my class there were almost 76 DIGs and IGs sitting in the class. Half of them said yes, we have to have PR. Fine. Half of them said, boss, this is not our job. We are there for core policing. Please don't make us do this PR activity. Huh? Don't make us jokers kind of a stuff. So that was a statement I'm just repeating. So, there's a guy who's saying, boss, my work will speak for itself. If I'm a good policeman, probably my work will speak for itself and people will automatically start having a positive image about the police. Fine. But at the other time, there were a lot of other people say that, okay, a lot of us do very good job, but we don't talk about it, hence people's perception about us never change. Fine, and there's a very beautiful word which we talk about in policing, which is called, because I'm still afraid of you and I still don't like you, I tend to become a reluctant user.
Correct.
Fine. So that's a common problem. So again that question to you guys, how much do you think there is, should I speak, should I not speak, should I be minimalistic, or should I just go ahead? Okay, so maybe if I take your example, Murli, the example you said is, okay, your product was fantastic, fine, but the other guys only spoke about it, his product was not fantastic. Given the chance both the products are good, then how much do you think I can go minimalistic and still be able to sell my product in the market?
I have a perspective to share.
Sure,
here.
please go ahead. Yeah.
See, 20 years ago, we had a definition in our organization which we called full life cycle leadership. We said a CEO is not the guy who is on the top, but everybody who manages a certain size of business is a CEO. So that was our full cycle, life cycle leadership. The philosophy that underpinned this whole thing was that when you do that role or when you do any role, the thinking, doing and communicating are three dimensions that are equally important.
Yes.
We used to call it the TDC of life. So thinking is the conceptualization of it, doing is execution, and C is communicating and collaborating.
Correct.
I think there is absolutely no role that you can think of anywhere, whether it is the cameraman's job, whether it's the event manager's job, whether it is the guy who's making the coffee and the high tea for the evening, everybody has to apply that equivalent of a TDC for their role.
Okay, correct.
Now, to answer your question, therefore, somebody can't say, no, communicating or talking about it or promotion is not my role, I shouldn't be doing it. No, I don't think I agree. If not true, justice should not only be delivered, it should appear to have been delivered. In other words, you have to substantiate why that particular judgment was done. So what I'm trying to say is that communicating or promotion is 1/3 of everybody's job. So whether it is a police, whether it is a CEO, whether it is somebody who is running the finance function, I would say that that's an expectation, and we should operate on the philosophy that without that, you may think very well, you may do very well, but that messaging or taking it out will not happen.
So Hari, question for you. Instead of professor, I'll ask you. The T, think, do, and communicate, right? So now the question is, how do you minimalize C, and is C should be the smallest or the largest?
No, I think...
Interesting. Yeah.
Another way of looking at it, and you are right. In the life cycle of a business or in the life cycle of evolution, T may appear to have a greater bearing at a given point in time.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And as at a certain stage in life, when you're bringing the product into the market, D takes predominance at that point in time. And for you to fuel the growth,
and to have a market share in the market, probably communication tends
and
to.
also, none of us will have 1/3 of T, D, and C. For example, I'm very strong, if I can say so, as a self-assessment, my strength is around T and C. For the D, I always embed myself with the right people in the team who are very strong in D, may not be very strong in C. In other words, individually you're supposed to have 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, but life never gives you that equal balance.
Sure.
But as a team, as an organization, how do you
balance all three of them?
So to answer your question, I would say at different phases or evolution, you need to have different...
No, that's exactly answer why we prefer to do T and D to start with and get there. So we have some material meat to communicate, substantiate what we could deliver. Yeah, good luck for them if they have a good product and they communicate well and execute well. We would have found other avenues to raise our own funds, but we didn't have those challenges at this point.
But okay, let me just come in here and come back and say, if this communication, say for example, that if I have a conscious call to make, and I know my product is good, I can deliver, and going back into that framework, that TDC framework, given a conscious call, should I be minimalistic in terms of my communication, or should I go all the board in terms of doing the communication? See, typically very beautiful example, I think you took the example of luxury products. So if I take a Volvo car versus a BMW versus a Mercedes, the kind of communication which each one of them does is phenomenally very, very different. Now, Volvo is a very, very minimalistic kind of a stuff. But on the contrary, you go to BMW and Mercedes, they're fairly elaborate in terms of their marketing, right? So I think this is where probably the difference comes in. So again, both of them are working in the market. It's that I cannot come back and say that BMW is not working or Volvo is not working. Both of them are working equally well into the market.
So I guess this dovetails into branding, right? First of all, who are you? Who's your target customer, and what is your target customer looking for? If you're a mass market brand, obviously you're going to be plastering the airwaves with everything because you want everybody to know. And it's not about value per se, it's about getting your message out there. If your target audience is a very select set of people, and that's the luxury example I was giving, a lot of those guys don't want to be known at the top level. That's the conversation that's going on right now, right, in the luxury world. A lot of them don't want the stuff that everybody else has got. They don't want everyone to know what they have. They want only the people in their circle to know that stuff. It's like a badge of honor or a secret club membership, right? Only that person knows this piece. If you figure that part out, then obviously minimalism makes sense to you. You have to figure out what that is, and I think at the end of the day...
But it cannot be a rule for all kind of a stuff. It cannot be
and I think at the end of the day, what it boils down to is this. You have a product, you have a value proposition, you have a target audience. You need to make sure that everybody in the target audience gets your value proposition. And you communicate accordingly.
So essentially you're saying it boils down to something called a value proposition kind of a stuff. And that's what we're talking about.
Not just value. See, minimalism is something you cannot start with. In the sense, you can have a concept, but it is only for people who have something to back with. Either you have attained a level of, let's say, branding, where now if you create a silence in the market, it actually works for you.
Correct,
and sometimes it has a counterproduction, right? So similarly, like to give Murli's example, so their strength was their product and other things were so strong that they could afford to go minimalistic, right? Because they know when they start talking along with the effort they put in, they will be able to match up with the competitors. And at that time, the competitor was not doing which worked in their favor. So I'll give you a very good example, which actually I saw the first case of, how effective marketing can help a company is the Move. So at that one time, we used to have two products which were in the same spirit called Volini Gel and Move. Right? Volini was seen more like a medicinal product, but ultimately both were same ointment oil. And I had the luxury of working directly with the promoters. The way he marketed Move to become a household name was amazing. And that was not a minimalistic, because that time there were limited channels. You can only advertise through TV media. They choose how to do marketing. They didn't use celebrities, but they used a lot of, let's say, television medias. And a large part of their money was spent, and it was all their own pocket. So for them, the minimalistic approach may not have worked, but once they have attended the success of the Move and the Paras became a brand, then for them launching any new product could have been much easier with a minimalistic.
Okay, can I counter you on this? So look at a brand like Ghadi, which has been minimalistic in its approach since ages. I think almost 40 years, one single campaign which has been running, which is talking about pehle istemal karo, pehle fir vishwas karo. And I'm sitting at a turnover of a huge amount of money, and just next to the market leader, which is levers in the market, and with a brand like Surf, and which has got multiple brands in its kitty, Surf. Look at the amount of money Surf spends on advertising, and compare it with Ghadi on that matter. And I've been silently able to flood the rural market, flood the small market, and have become a huge brand in the market. So again, see, I take your example very clearly and come back and say, maybe minimalism worked for them.
There's no minimalism I see into three parts. One is you want to be minimalistic in whom you want to communicate. That's where you choose your target audience. It could be rural or geography based, or the, let's say, youth based or the demographic based. Second, you go minimalistic how much you want to communicate. So that's where all these luxury brands, like, they don't communicate much. They just have a brand name, but what do they do, what product they have, or it's the way.
See, for luxury, we have to understand one thing, and I'm just cutting it down. Luxury, if I speak much about it in the market, the exclusivity goes away.
Correct. That's what I said.
And the moment exclusivity goes away, my value goes away.
Correct. So
my value goes away.
Right.
So that's the whole point.
That's what I said.
So that's the point. For Ghadi, all the more it makes sense to be more vocal in the market, but I achieve that number without being vocal in the market.
No, what I'm trying to say, how much you communicate about your product. Ghadi, let's say they pehle istemal kare fiswa. They are not saying we have what inside the product and what is the quality. The third is how much you communicate, and that's where I think you'll always see a debate. Was too much advertising, is it good, bad? Because, and I think there's no right answer, because many times these second and third, like what you communicate or how much how often creates a problem, because a lot of time people don't like to see the same thing coming up again in all your social media. And sometimes what you communicate, if you are too silent, and I'll give an example, because they have cred, which is, I think,
correct.
If I sit with 5 people in my family, other than me, nobody understands what do they do when they see the advertisement, right? That you have Rahul Dravid saying Indra Nagar ka gunda hu main, right? So none of us could, at least because I use cred, I could make out, I know what is cred, but none other than who was sitting, my parents, my wife, they have no idea what is this company all about. So sometimes what you communicate, if you want to create a mystery, it can actually counterproduce, because you are not able to communicate.
Taking a point from your cred thing, and I'm just quoting it because since both of you are from the tech sector kind of stuff, and I just want to come back to that. A lot of these companies like Grow, fine, so Zomato, or many of them actually, they actually did not spend a lot of money in the market. Same time, at the same time, we have companies like, what is that, Pharmacy. Fine. So when they came into the market, they came with a huge amount of spend being made on the advertising kind of a front. So I'm just trying to say that in the tech space, in the small companies eco space, startup phase, is the movement happening towards minimalism now?
So one thing I must say, first of all, let's get one distinction out of the way, which is minimalism is not frugality. Startups,
Okay, very
sometimes
good.
you're cut off by a budget.
Budget,
I only
correct,
have
correct,
this
correct,
much.
correct.
and
Given a
therefore-
choice, I have money, then how much do I like to spend?
Correct.
Yeah.
I think
And where do I want to spend?
minimalism helps you to conserve resources, and that conserved resources, if it transferred as a value to the customer, I think the
That
product
makes more
finds
sense,
its
yeah.
success.
But the starting point is not conserving resources. You have enough
Less
resources, but you
resources.
choose
Yeah.
willingly
Conscious
that
minimalism.
my brand image, my product posture, my target segment will choose this strategy of marketing. That is the definition of minimalism we are talking
No,
about.
see, you spoke about two brands, right? One is rural brand, other one is compared with Surf Excel. And how about the pricing? Is the pricing gets affected primarily because one is more of minimalization based and not the other?
No, that was the positioning of the brand that, okay, I want to make it a mass brand, hence I cannot increase the price of the product. So I think the budget did not come first, the positioning came first, and then the budget came into picture actually.
And more
So-
than positioning, see, this minimalism hack can sometimes be, recipe for fail also, because if you are not reaching out to your customer, you're not communicating.
So
maybe you're-
conservatism can actually lead to
can
some
lead to
problems for
health,
you
and
as well.
there's no way to evaluate. For example, I'll tell you, I'm sure a lot of you know yoga bars. So they just sold to ITC for 500 crore. And they have done zero advertisement because Swasni, who is a co-founder, is also my co-founder in FinAdvantage. We were after her, why you're not advertising, why you're not pushing marketing. He said, no, I don't want to become a unicorn. I want to make sure I spend more on the quality because we are into health product. I want to work more on distribution. So today, I don't know if she would have done, whether she would have probably run out of money or she would have probably not achieved more than what she achieved. And also, there's no right answer. But at the same time, you saw Licious, which is the first unicorn D2C brand, and the way they spend marketing. And the marketing and quality both are helping. It's not that,
Yeah, it's not the
branding is-
opposite to each other kind of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they are ensuring that they are able to scale up, they are able to reach to the different, let's say, geographies and all through branding. Because once they made a good product, they started with Bangalore, they made a good mark in Bangalore. But now to expand to other geographies, marketing and branding and communication, which is they are not minimalist, they are doing actually too much. Sometimes I feel.
Yeah, others if I can
But
hear on
Professor,
this.
I want, because you brought Farm Easy, people need to understand difference between swell and growth. Swelling is what you artificially create with PE money. You buy customers. Swelling will not last.
Okay, so can I counter you on this?
Yes.
Sorry, I can. I'd love to counter to you on this. See, Farm Easy came out with a concept which is new to the Indian customer. Fine. So I have to make you aware of it. Fine. I have to make your attitude acceptable towards this kind of a product. So for that, I have to spend a lot of money because without that, possibly customer would not have been ready. I'm just making an assumption out here. Fine. So maybe that kind of advertising was required for Farm Easy, but maybe will I call it swelling? I don't know. Am I buying my customers? I don't know.
I can counter that.
Yeah, please,
Coming
please, please.
from the same space, so I can tell you that
Tata 1MG.
what
Yeah,
now they
yeah.
call Tata 1MG. 1MG
Yeah,
was
yeah,
there
yeah.
before, was a bigger company.
Huh.
The Netmeds,
Yeah, yeah.
Pharmacy,
Yeah,
MedLife
yeah.
were the guys who came around with all this noise and all this shock and awe.
Yeah, yeah,
Because they got funded once they do that, and then you do all this stuff. Now I won't blame them because I am a victim, and I am somebody who's lived through that myself. Right, because I raised money. Yeah, I raised money, lot of money, and we did the same thing. We spent 700 rupees CAC for each customer, direct to customer, right? And you probably making 100, 150 bucks, but you're spending 700 to acquire with all this LTV, ATV calculations that we have all fooled the world with, right? Which we now know is not true. But when you start, that is what everybody tells you. All the guys the learned marketing people who come to you, everybody tells you got to do this, right? So you went ATL, you went BTL, you did everything. Now, I spend zero on B2C marketing, spend zero. And I still get customers, right? I still get customers purely because of word of mouth, purely because of what the service we do. And I've chosen to pivot to B2B. So B2C, I'm keeping it alive only because I've started it and I don't want. What happened to all the dollars that I spent earlier? Now I suddenly tell myself, maybe I should have done it differently. And I'm sure hindsight tells me you could have done it differently. But one truth I would say is when you're walking into the market, when we came in 2015, there was nothing called digital health in India. We were the first players. We were talking about bringing health services home people who had never seen healthcare outside a hospital, they always
Correct,
thought it
correct,
was
correct,
hospital.
correct, correct.
So we were also kind of educating a concept, right? So we did a few things which I think were right at that time, but we realized it's not sustainable. And unless somebody is willing to come in and burn money and money and money, you are not able to do that. So the way I would look at it is, in a mass market, direct to consumer space, minimalism will not probably work very easily.
Okay, great,
except
great,
when you
great,
roll
great,
the
great,
product
great.
out. Except when you roll the product out, because you don't have the money, like we said, we don't have the money. So what happens is, yeah, karle, right? And then you realize it's picking up. Then somebody comes and gives you money. Then you say, okay, 28%, I'm going to keep it aside for customer acquisition. Then you got to do things. Now the question is, do you do a spray and pray, or are you starting to do very, very segmented play? Like if you look at digital marketing, all these guys in the tech space today, they'll all be spending upwards of 15, 20 lakhs minimum per month just on digital marketing, which is whatever, 200,000 impressions, 2 million impressions, and so on. And I don't think it is required. I don't think it's required, because that's not going to give you the momentum. It's like outbound calling. Your conversion rates are 1%, 1.5%.
Correct.
So minimalism is about trying to find a bang for the buck, focusing, knowing who your true audience is. Do you have that slice? Do you have that insight? And then finding ways to access them directly. I think that's what I would put as.
Yeah, you were saying something, sorry.
I was just going to say, just to carry on from that point, right? Something he alluded to. A lot of it depends on the maturity of your market and how well your own product is understood by your consumer.
Sure.
You can't go minimal if nobody knows what your product is.
Correct.
Then you've got to spend a
correct,
bunch on education in the first place.
Correct.
If you're a luxury brand and you're selling, luxury handbags,
Correct.
everyone knows a handbag.
Yeah.
All you're doing is doing the brand, and therefore you can be minimal. You can't do.
And certainly you're dealing with a selected segment of customer, not a very large segment of
And
customer.
you are
The
becoming,
you don't
familiarity
have
of
to
the-
go that
and you are going
He's talking
minimalistic.
about familiarity of the product segment.
Correct.
And you are
correct,
going
correct.
minimalistic only after you have spent a lot in whichever ways in creating the brand. So you are not starting minimalistic now. After creating a brand, or after attaining, the brand could have been built based on
That's
multiple
not true,
ways.
by the way. And again, I'll give you a luxury suitcases brand whose name I'm right now forgetting.
The one which got funded last week. The Indian one. The Indian one.
No.
Yeah.
I'm talking international.
Yeah.
They did zero
Chumi.
advertising in.
Chumi.
No, you haven't. It's not a common name. But how they got branded was they put themselves products inside a really high-end TV show, Succession. So the luggage that the Succession billionaires were carrying became a phenomenon among the rich. But nobody else has heard of them. That worked for them. But it comes from confidence that you know your brand, you know your segment, you know how to get to that segment. I can be minimalistic now.
And is digital giving a lot of space for minimalism for using to go minimalistic? Is it
It
possible
can when
because of
done well,
digital
because you
medium?
can target very specifically. But it's science. It's not easy.
But Yoga Bar is a good example of minimalism as well, because they were only online brand, D2C brand, created practically on Amazon, if I'm not wrong. I use the brand quite a bit. And true to brand, true to the contents, and they may have only made bars, but they then expanded that to cereals, not a long leap. Same ingredients, not glued together. So it worked. The user recalled, yeah, उसमें sugar नहीं था, तो इसमें भी नहीं होगा, मैं खा सकता हूँ. So it worked. They probably only, Amazon search is their only way. They probably spend money, if at all anything.
And they were much lesser on online. In fact, online business for them was just 10%. So they were doing through distribution network, through Nature Free, Store, Ratnadeep,
No,
Indigo.
see, there are a lot of brands which are
Air
coming
Asia.
that way. So, for example, brands like Rare Rabbit, brands like Neiman. So what is that? The shoe brand.
Neiman's.
Fine. So there are a lot of brands which are coming that way. Fine, because they also know that D2C is the way to go forward for them. Typically, they cannot counter large brands in the market. So the only option available to them is to go small in terms of that.
Well, Professor,
again,
Rare Rabbit is a good example. Now that they are now pervasive everywhere in Hyderabad, they have 2 or 3 stores in Hyderabad from where we are sitting here. I started buying their brands because of the quality and fit to me. I don't have a pot belly, and most other brands cater to the pot belly people. Sorry, Sini, no pun intended. So, seriously. So, but their arms are thinner, the fabric is really superb. It will compete with all those luxury brands at a price, we're talking 1,200 rupees to 1,800 rupees. It gives the same fabric, same feel. and no overtly branding. ये इतना बड़ा letter में नहीं लिखा हुआ है. Nobody pays me for wearing a logo, right? So I'm not willing to wear a logo.
You want to show off your logo, that set of people though.
Yeah.
Okay. Balenciaga is a brand that did
I
that.
think we all agree on something, and I think there's a common understanding that okay, minimalism probably is the requirement depending upon the maturity of the market, and that's what I think I'm trying to hear from. I'm hearing from each one of you. Let me also take the other aspect of minimalism. Is the consumer becoming minimalistic?
No, I don't think so. In the world of Instagram, which is where the majority of shopping in the younger generation is happening, no, it's absolutely, you need to bombard them. You see it on your Instagram feed 5 times. You see 3 of your friends like it. That's when you buy it. That seems to be the
consumer
selling.
is still elaborate. He still is extravagant. He doesn't want to be minimalistic.
At the end of the day, he wants something his neighbor recognizes.
Still that neighbor's envy still work.
In most people, they're buying something. And I'm talking obviously not the utility stuff, right? Slightly above utility. You only buy something because you want somebody else to recognize that you've got that thing.
Okay.
And one more thing which I'm seeing in the consumer behavior is they are not buying based on what company says. They are buying based on what either their friends are buying. If a company is whatever promoted, if they come on the Shark Tank, you will see their website getting crashed. Right? It's because that validation has happened from some other source. And that is playing a very important in the consumer, because if in my family,
somebody is saying that he's not getting minimalistic. That's what
he's
you're
not.
trying to say.
Today, as I said, the consumer wants
Is that
more.
everybody feels that way?
So for me, it's a segment Srini is talking about. You teen to early adulthood, or deeply influenced, or want to showcase their achievements. Achievement in that case is a label on the T-shirt, or the quality of the mascara on the face. They want to showcase that. And that drives behavior, and that behavior is driven by validation by your peer group. And the validation in peer group comes from the social media. That's how that supply chain looks like for me. I think it immediately drops once you cross that age barrier. When you move from beer to whiskey as a consumer, your preferences also drastically change.
Well, at the end of the day, we're part of a tribe, right? Whatever that tribe happens to be, and you want your tribe to recognize. If you're part of the mass tribe, you want everyone to know what you have. If you're the elite tribe, it's a secret society. You want only stuff they will recognize. So obviously that's minimal.
Yeah. And one more thing, I don't know if that answers your question. Customer does not like to hear the same thing from the company again and again. If a company is doing too much advertising, if you're seeing everywhere the same advertisement, you will probably start disliking them. It has to come from a third party. If an influencer is talking about a product, that has more validity than a company talking the same thing again and again and again. So that's where I see, and probably that's where companies just started changing, where they are not directly, trying to talk about their product directly multiple times. They are using somewhere where it looks independent, somewhere it looks a validation, which could be user experience, and that I think is a change which probably, I don't know if that is exactly what you are.
Okay. My sense or my reaction on this is consumers definitely are not minimalistic today. I mean, they may choose to be minimalistic as a fashion statement. A lot of them say it, a few of them practice it. But in terms of today, you have multiple mediums that come at you. See, today I open my phone, I would have 5 different social media apps that I look at. I have 4 different news media apps that I look at. In other words, and the systems are all integrated, right? So you go into one, the system tells you, here you go, you say same thing.
Yes.
So I don't think individuals are minimalistic.
And not going minimalistic by any chance.
Not. Very few.
Okay.
A lot of them talk about it.
Okay.
We're human
Coming
at the
back
end of the
to
day.
what Murali said, he bought a shoe which is not so-called well-branded or something, right? Lesser-known brand.
I still do only those kind of things.
So, if there are some customers who chase only for those products which are produced with a philosophy of minimalization, how do you categorize those customers? Are they customers?
I think that goes back to my tribe thing, right? If you're part of a subculture, you'll buy something that subculture buys, and therefore, I wouldn't say it's minimal, but you're only targeting that little subculture, and you don't want the masses to know about it. You want to feel cool because I'm part of this subculture. that requires that targeted minimalism, if you want to call it that, right?
No, but here's the other point. See, 20 years ago, when I used to travel abroad, the only thing I would bring back are those Glenfiddichs and the Glenmorangies of the world, right? There was a whole movement towards collection of these imported whiskies and so on. About a year now, I have been pretty much about drinking only Indian whiskies. And Murli knows.
Getting good quality ones now,
constantly
that's why.
pushing. About a year now, I've been like, I'll hold to it. And I know that now, when I go to my friends' houses, we never used to have Indian whiskies. Now they know that Hari is coming, so at least you need to have 2 bottles kept because you don't know which one this fellow will drink, right? And I've noticed now it is becoming a cycle with the group variety, right? And in my house, when
So you're forming your own tribe now.
right? And I've noticed that you're right. Once you start onto that, you realize that okay, there is value in this. What he's saying is right because I did blind tasting and nobody could find the difference of any of these things, right? So I think consumers would love to have that exclusivity, and then you will have a larger group forming, looking at it, and so on and so forth.
So how are you saying?
So can I ask you one question on this? Sorry, I'm going to ask you one question on this. Why did you started shifting from those brands to the Indian brand?
Okay, so I have to say that here is the whole point, right? At one stage in life, the fact that you have arrived meant that you could afford these things.
Okay.
And then I realized that I have been in that arrived state for a while.
Correct.
Let's redefine it.
I have no compulsion to do that.
Correct.
Nobody in my circle will think Hari is not able to afford something, so he's
Okay.
Hari wants to pivot now.
Okay.
Fashion statement.
Pivot. Okay.
Seems like I have arrived at a very right time when whiskies are being discussed. Just a little bit of thinking on the same.
So we're not discussing whiskeys here.
Yeah, just so it's
No,
clear.
but just to continue on this, I have also shifted to Indian whiskies, but it's nothing to do with arriving or anything like that. I think it has just improved, I feel. I know I read your article that in your blind, this thing nobody could gauge. But wine, for example, Sula wine, 10 years ago, I didn't like it, okay? Today, it has improved. And I think the same is true for Amrut and others also.
By the way, even gin, right? Gin is going through a massive
So,
renaissance.
Professor, product maturity makes tribe's life easier to
Correct. I'm not denying. I'm not denying.
For
Look
me,
at the same point, taking it to minimalism. Most of these Indian brands today are word of mouth driven.
Correct.
In-the-face advertisement, especially the ones that I'm.
So I'll go back to your question, and I think it's a very beautiful thing which we started discussing. So have you started adopting the Indian wine just because the product has improved, or because of you think now that the product has improved?
Well, I think it has improved.
So it's a perception.
Perception versus
It's a perception. Or just think around. I think I'll go back to what you're trying to talk about. Now 20 people are talking about that, boss, Indian wine is really good now.
Yeah.
Hence you started believing in it.
No,
Let him finish. I'll just come back. Yeah.
So my particular thing, not as much on whiskey, but on wine, I can tell you, I'll rather not have a Sula wine if there is nothing else on the offer. Okay, I'll not. But today that has changed significantly, and that's not because others have said. It's just because I have, it's tasting better.
No, I'll come back to, I'll give a very basic example.
Sure.
And that's, I give that example often in my class and I repeat that. See, in 1987, I ate Maggi for the first time.
Yes.
And I vomited.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I vomited because it was so awful. It was, I don't know, because coming from a very small town, Rishikesh, living in a typical family which doesn't eat onion, garlic. Fine. So when I ate it for the first time, I vomited. Today, you can feed me that same Maggi 20 times a day without any problem.
So your body has adopted.
No, I have acquired the taste.
Acquired.
I have acquired the taste.
Yeah,
Fine.
your body
So
has adopted.
I'm just asking you, is it have you acquired the taste, or is it that it is really improved? I'm just trying to ask you that.
Could very well be, I believe, because now you are questioning like a professor. because I'd never had a Indian wine, there must have been a point where somebody would have said, "Ek baar try to karke dekh le."
Correct.
Because they would have said that word of mouth you said. They would have
Correct.
said to me, and maybe I've tried, and then it has worked for me.
This is what I was actually trying to point out, and this is what is changing the consumer behavior. Is they are ready to try new things, particularly in India. And I'll give you an example which
I don't think so. Okay,
I'll give you an example. It happened with me. Is the Neiman's, right? So I typically I am the person who generally like stick to, like, if I used to be Nokia fan, I don't buy anything.
Correct.
If I buy Maruti car, I don't even try to go to other thing. When Neiman's came in, my brother just got it. We try. Just try karte. So now with so many things happening, either from a, let's say, the
Friend
quality,
side, peer side,
friends,
something.
the trust has increased on the, let's say, quality product. The startup environment has become positive with Shark Tank and other, that where you feel, okay, these products could be also be good. So I think it's overall the confidence has also increased, the quality has also improved, and somewhere that adaptability or that, okay, let me try, has also increased. And I think
so there's no one factor, but there are a lot of factors are working parallelly and simultaneously at the same time.
What's your counter to that? I know you had some.
No, see, I have a strong opinion on that statement. You know, we all tend to come back and say, you know, consumer is knowledgeable, he understands, and he can take a conscious call. For me, I'm a psychologist by background. So there's a very beautiful word in consumer psychology which is called as, you know, consumer is a cognitive miser. Given a chance, I'll not use my brain to take a decision, but I want to take a decision. Now, how do I take a decision when I don't use my brain? I purely base it upon a lot of judgments in life. Now, these judgments are already existing in my mind. This friend of mine, I strongly believe he's a very good guy, he's a knowledgeable guy, he has lived in US, he knows very much, he drinks whatever he drinks. So, you know, I have absolutely no knowledge about it. So what will I do? I will strongly rely upon what he tells me. Fine, and I'm not going to use my brain. Then after he told me once, now, okay, maybe I liked it, I disliked it, what will I do next time? I have created certain symbols in my mind, and I'm going to use those symbols to come back and say, okay, oh, hey, boss, Hugo Boss is a very good brand. Now, BMW is a luxury car to drive. So what I've done, I've created symbols in my life. See, all of us, we typically try to make our life very convenient. And we take decisions out of that convenience, and that convenience we only process limited amount of data. We cannot process lot of amount of data. Even if I process lot of data, I cannot take a decision based upon 10 parameters. I will always take decision based upon one single parameter. And that can be as simple as, that boss, I want to envy my neighbor.
Interesting.
It can be as simple as that.
Interesting you say this. I tend to agree, because this car example specifically, I remember. So we were trying to buy a new car for ourselves. We had made up our mind, like with Indrani and I, we had made up our mind that we'll go, I'll not name brands, but we'll go for brand A. Just in case we have some issues, we go to a brand B. Guess what? We actually wrote down the check also, because we knew the brochure. So we actually wrote down the check. We'll just submit, we'll take the car and we'll come. The experience at the shop was not at all conducive. And that's that one factor that you spoke about.
Correct.
So there are 12 factors that we decided at home have completely gone.
This in consumer psychology term, there's a term called heuristics, thumb rule which consumer uses to take a decision. This heuristics is very beautiful heuristics which is called as HDIF. Which is called how do I feel about it.
Oh, how do I feel?
That's a word. And this was given by a psychologist by the name called Michael Pham. Michael Pham came and said, boss, when we go to buy a product at a store, when I'm buying a garment, you know, all of us very, very unconsciously or subconsciously what we do, we open the wrapper, I'm going to buy a shirt, we slide our two finger inside and we do this. Believe me, none of us understand any damn thing. Any damn thing. But we again come back and say, you know, how do I feel about it? Oh, this garment is fantastic. The garment was so smooth to touch. Hello, do you actually know what a garment is all about? We tend to believe. So again, my question, you know, we tend to believe we have taken a lot of decisions. So that's a larger question I'm trying to ask you.
So I have a
minimalism,
point to this, right?
that's a larger point.
So let me bring a point back to the minimalism piece, right? And tie it to the alcohol bit. What changed? I think two things changed. One, quality definitely went up. I'm very clear the quality went up, right? But I think more powerful than that is storytelling.
Yes.
Storytelling in Indian brands has gone up significantly. The story of India has gone up significantly. Harry, you said, you know, it's for that reason. For me, I buy a lot of, in fact, almost all of my alcohol now is Indian, right? Whether it's gin, whiskey, even rum. But I'm buying into the India story. I'm like, why should I be promoting an international brand? This is good. Why should I why not buy this?
And you will not call this as minimalism.
I wouldn't call it minimalism.
This is not minimalism by any chance.
I still want to show off to my friends that, see, I bought Indian alcohol.
Correct.
By the way, it's partly mystique, because it's like, You don't know this
yes,
brand.
yes.
I discovered this brand.
Yes, yes,
you should
yes.
try it.
Yes. So I think
feel
that word
proud of
mystique
it.
is a very, very interesting word to pick up because, you know, in doing that minimalism, actually we tend to create a lot of mystique actually around the brand. And that actually works around.
Which is an interesting one because it means there's a cultural aspect to it too.
Correct.
So the counterpoint to the Indian one, 2 years ago it was Japanese whiskey.
Yes.
Everybody was doing Japanese whiskey because we all discovered them all. It's like, oh my God, this Japanese whiskey. And the individual brand didn't matter as much as Japanese whiskey. So
You're right.
it's
Correct.
stories.
Now,
So,
thanks to what's happening maybe in the country also, there is a sense of pride in general.
Yeah.
There's a sense of pride towards we feel good about us. And then why not ours?
And if any company actually picks up a marketing strategy revolving around that same story, even though I might not be spending a lot of money on that, I will be actually able to put my point forward and it will sell in the market. Yes.
And just to
Yes.
as you rightly said, right, the quality has definitely increased tremendously because there's a demand. They are able to match to the requirements of the people, and I think all these three factors working together is where, you know, changing the habits of the people. There is definitely a room for people who are ready to give them a chance. The quality has improved. The overall branding of the India as a whole has improved, and I think all these factors are playing together, and no single factor can work out.
No, to go back to my earlier point, just to reiterate, you can only consciously choose minimalism as a strategy if you're super confident about your product.
Okay, so one last statement from all of you, kind of stuff, you know. So when do you think minimalism as a strategy would really work?
Like I said, if you're confident about your product, you believe your customer already knows enough about your product that you don't need to shout it, you don't need to educate them about it.
Okay.
In those circumstances, minimalism can work.
Okay, what about others?
No, I think same thing. I would say maybe with an added dimension that if your differentiator stands out very well.
Okay.
If that, what is that, like when you say Volvo and you say safety and you say BMW
Sure,
and you
sure.
say sturdy.
Sure.
If you're able to bring that little identity or differentiator to yours, I think then minimalism will work because then you just play on that little word.
And you don't have to just bang kind of stuff. Okay, great, yeah.
Stage of the life cycle your product or your enterprise in.
Okay.
Your choice of the segment you want to play in. Third, your branding strategy. All of them, it's the ikigai between all three of them will give you the real minimalism which would work. If you are blindsided by only one, it's a recipe for failure.
Okay, great. You will come back to you. Yeah.
No, I was just saying everybody has, you know, covered most of the aspects, but a theoretical answer could be if you have a monopoly of kinds. I think it's going back to your uniqueness, so then it'll work as well.
Okay. Yeah.
I think if you know you're in a stage of business where you know exactly who are your audience and you know what you want to achieve from the marketing, like you want to have reach newer customer, newer geography, or you want to just make sure you are connected with the customer, you can always choose to be minimalistic because you're clear what you want. And I think that level of maturity obviously comes either once you are confident or you have been in the market for a while and you have probably, you know, been able to deliver. So I think that stage is where you can comfortably go minimalistic and it will work for you.
Correct, Raj?
Yeah, I think it works if you have a clear understanding of the customer and communicate to those customers rather than making a noise in the market. Number two is it also depends on who your competitors are and at what stage you are fighting with your competitors. And if your competitors are big enough and if you don't have a differentiated product, I think minimalism will flop.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. It was nice talking to all of you. Thank you very much.